Our MC wakes up in the body of an absolute loser of a noble Liam, and upon realizing that he is now in a kid's body, he freaks out. His father scolds him for making such a scene, but he's in a good mood today, so he just tells Liam to sit down and try to not be a disappointment. Liam still can't believe this is all real, so he is sure that he'll wake up sooner or later, but the next morning he wakes up still stuck as Liam Hamilton, so he's just going to have to accept that this is his life now. A little while later, his personal maid comes into his room to help him get dressed, so Liam asks her a few questions and finds out that he's the fifth son of Count, and that party yesterday was to celebrate the birth of his new baby sister. Later that day, Liam is having a chat with his older brother Bruno to try and piece together a bit more about his current life, and he finds out that Bruno is the fourth son of the Hamilton noble family, but they are on the verge of losing their status as an nobility. Basically, there's a rule in place to prevent noble families from becoming entitled Karens, and it states that every noble family must accomplish something great within 3 generations, otherwise they will be stripped of their status as nobility and get demoted to commoner. As it turns out, the Hamilton family is currently on its 3rd generation without any major accomplishments, which is why their father and the oldest son, Albrevet, are anxious to make some kind of contribution to society in order to maintain their status as nobility. Bruno, on the other hand, doesn't really care if he ends up becoming a commoner because he's just a chill guy who doesn't give a frick. Liam is surprised by how nonchalant Bruno is about the whole situation, but to be honest, he doesn't really care either. He literally got here yesterday, so he doesn't know what to do with his life in the first place. Just then, their lesson teacher arrives and announces that he will be beginning their magic lectures shortly, and as soon as Liam hears the word magic, he leaps out of his chair and asks if he really gets to learn how to use magic. Bruno is a bit surprised by Liam's enthusiasm, so he tells him that there are a bunch of grimoires down in the family storeroom, so he can go take a look if he wants. But Bruno warns him not to get his hopes up too high because most people don't have an aptitude for magic. Even so, the magic instructor encourages Liam to learn about it because understanding magic is important even if he can't use it. Liam goes to find his maid and asks her to show him where the grimoires are, so she leads him to the mansion's study, and Liam is amazed by the sheer volume of knowledge present here. He looks through the shelves and finds a book about basic fire magic, so he opens it and decides to try it out. After following the instructions in the book, Liam is able to create a flame on the tip of his finger, which is really impressive for a first attempt. Liam goes to his father's office to ask for permission to use the grimoire library, but his father hates talking to him, so he dismissively tells Liam that he can do whatever he wants. The interaction was a little disheartening, but what's important is that he gave Liam permission to use the grimoire library, so he spends the next couple of days mastering all the basic elemental spells. Eventually, he learns how to cast the spells without needing to look at the grimoire, and Bruno is astonished because he can't use magic at all. He tells Liam he is amazing and soon enough he will be able to make a name for himself. However, Bruno is curious about Liam's motivations and asks him if he's trying so hard to learn magic because he wants to become the next family head. After all, that may make him a target for their elder brother. But Liam has no interest in the family politics of succession, he just thinks magic is cool. Since he has mastered all the novice spells, he decides to start learning ice magic, but while he is leaving the library, he gets called by his father. His father had heard about Liam's talent for magic, and even though he couldn't give a damn about Liam a couple of days ago, he is suddenly really interested in him. He asks for a magic demonstration, so Liam shows him that he can cast magic without needing to open a grimoire, and the Count is elated because he might be able to use Liam to secure their family's position. From now on, he tells Liam that he is allowed to use whatever resources he may need for his magic studies. All of a sudden, a report comes in that a particular man has appeared on the Hamilton land, so the Count orders the soldiers to be mobilized so they can capture him. From the sound of things, this guy must be a really big threat, but that has nothing to do with Liam, so he heads back out into the forest so he can practice his magic. While he is walking out into the woods, he finds a man sitting under a tree, and the man seems a little on edge once he spots Liam. He asks if Liam is a member of the Hamilton family here to capture him, and Liam confirms that he is indeed a member of the Hamilton family, but he has no interest in capturing him. He doesn't even know who the guy is to begin with. The guy is relieved that Liam isn't after him, but then he notices that Liam is carrying a grimoire, so he asks if he is studying magic. Liam confirms it, and since constant practice is the best way to improve, he's going to go practice now. However, before he leaves, the guy asks Liam if he wants to learn a more efficient way of using magic. This gets Liam's attention, so he asks the man what he is talking about, and the man shows him a technique that allows him to use 5 different types of magic at once. Liam is extremely impressed, so the guy asks if he wants to get a quick magic lesson, and Liam says he would love to. The guy is honestly surprised that Liam is being so polite since nobles are known to be quite the arrogant bunch, but Liam is different, mostly because he just reincarnated here recently. Well, anyway, in Liam's first lesson, the man asks him to try drawing 2 diagrams on the ground at the same time. Liam does as he is told, and he turns out to be pretty good at it, so the next step shouldn't be hard for him to master. He now tells Liam to try using 2 different spells at the same time, so Liam attempts it with a flame cutter on his right hand and a fireball on his left. After visualizing the spells, Liam is able to simultaneously cast them on his first try, and the man is truly amazed because it is extremely rare for one to be able to use this technique, let alone on their first attempt. He encourages Liam to keep going and tells him to try using 3 spells at once instead of 2, so Liam gives it a try, and it seems to be working at first, but then his magic suddenly fizzles out, so Liam gets disappointed. However, the man assures him that he performed the technique properly, so the only reason the magic died out was because he doesn't have enough magic power in his body right now to sustain it. Casting multiple spells at once consumes an insane amount of magic power, so Liam just needs to learn to control his magic a little more so he will be able to maintain the simulcast. For now, the man is going to give him a little lesson about the nature of the techniques, so he asks Liam to sit on the ground while he makes an illustration in the dirt. These are prime numbers, and the man explains that the multi-spell casting technique only works with prime numbers. He has no idea why it works that way though. Basically, you can cast 1, 2, and 3 spells at once, but if you try to cast 4 at once, it won't work no matter what you try. Right now, the man has a limit of 13 spells at once, which is unbelievably impressive, but honestly, he has enough magic power that he can easily go up to 16. However, due to the prime number rule, he can't activate any higher simulcasting until his magic power can accommodate 17 spells. Liam is currently 12, so the man is confident that with a solid training routine, Liam will be able to raise his magic power to great heights, and to help him with that, the man offers him this special ring. The ring is basically a massive grimoire and has all sorts of spells stored on it, so Liam can learn them whenever he wants. Liam excitedly puts the ring on, and more than 300 spells begin flowing into his little head. He can't wait to try them out, so he turns towards the woods and activates the wind shot spell, creating a massive gust of wind. He is really happy with how this turned out, so he turns back to the man to thank him, but the man is nowhere to be found. Just then, Liam's maid shows up and warns him that it's dangerous to be out in the woods alone right now. Apparently, there's a suspicious man on the loose, so she tells him to be careful about talking to strangers, but that aside, she came here to give him a grimoire his father wants him to have, so she hands him the book and walks off to return to the mansion. The man then reappears behind Liam, and so Liam asks him where he went to a second ago, but he tells him that he never actually left. He was just using invisibility magic to stay hidden since he can't let anyone find him here. That aside, that's a really interesting grimoire Liam just got, so the man offers to show him a neat trick. He tells Liam to open the grimoire and try summoning a spirit while wearing the ring he gave him, and when he summons a fire spirit, it gets absorbed into the ring. He does the same with all the other elemental spirits, so he can ask for their help later, but by the time he's done, he realizes that the man is gone, and this time he won't be coming back. Before he left, he wrote a message for Liam in the dirt and told him, "Keep training your magic and you will surely become a great mage in the future. And by the way, don't snitch on me. If anyone asks, I was never here." Liam knows very little about that man, but is undeniable that he learned more this afternoon than he ever would have learned on his own, so he will forever respect him as his master. A month after Liam first met his master, he has remained consistent with his training, and now he is far more skilled at wielding his magic. Just then, Bruno comes up to Liam. He is surprised to see that he has made white charcoal on his own. White charcoal burns a lot hotter than regular charcoals, and it creates no smoke. It is really useful. However, it is almost impossible to make without a special furnace and extreme precision. So he is amazed that Liam could create this much with nothing but magic. He also notices that Liam has a bag full of Lecro crystals, crystals that help one restore expended magic power, and asks if Liam made those by himself as well. Liam confirms this, although he did have a bit of trouble perfecting the technique at first since it requires him to use 5 types of magic at once, but he eventually figured it out. Bruno is glad to see that his little brother is so talented, because that means he will probably be fine on his own. As for Bruno, he's getting married soon, so he won't be around anymore. Liam is shocked since this is the first time he's hearing about any marriage, so Bruno explains that he is marrying into a low-ranking noble family. They have less money than the Hamilton family, but you will have more freedom there, so he's happy with the arrangement. Liam doesn't know how to feel about this, but he says he's happy for Bruno. And before Bruno leaves, he wants to give Liam some advice. He tells him that their father wanted a daughter so he could marry her off to the royal family and secure the Hamilton family's position as nobility. However, Liam turned out to be a boy, so he deemed Liam a failure back then and decided to try again for a daughter. However, in the meantime, he grew increasingly anxious about their family's position, so in a desperate attempt to achieve something, He sent out a force of 1,000 men out to go slay a monster that had been sealed away in the forest. However, that plan failed miserably, resulting in the loss of over 90% of the forces. Their father is still trying to gain an achievement for the Hamilton family, but personally, Bruno thinks the family is cooked, so he wants Liam to think about a way to live independently. Liam decides to take Bruno's advice about independence, so he decides to sell his products to make some money of his own. This works out great for him since the white charcoal is a valuable commodity and fetches a decent price, but he needs something a little more profitable if he's going to make enough money to live on his own. Since he's in town already, Liam decides to take a break at a noodle shop and asks for a bowl of ramen. The shop lady prepared one bowl for him, and Liam absolutely loves the taste, and so do a lot of people in town, but all the noodles here have to be made from scratch and don't last very long, so Liam comes up with a great idea to make some extra profit. After a little tinkering, he goes to see his maid and the head chef while they are making dinner and asks them to taste his latest invention. He puts a block of noodles in a bowl and tells them that all they need to do is pour hot water over it, and after they do so, it turns into a delicious bowl of noodles. Liam used his spirits to cook and dehydrate the noodles, so now they'll last for a really long time and can be prepared almost instantly. He is sure his invention will be widely loved, so he rushes to the merchant guild to sell it. But to his disappointment, the merchant tells him he can't distribute Liam's product for him since he is only the 5th son of the Hamilton family. As such, he will need written permission from his father or his eldest brother Albrevet to sell any original goods in this land. Liam doubts he can get permission without having to hand over the profits as well, so he gives up for now and leaves. And once he is home, we find out that Albrevet was the one who told the merchant to deny Liam's request. He can't stand the idea that his little brother is more successful than him, so he's going to do whatever it takes to stop him from succeeding. However, while Liam may not be aware of his brother's grudge against him, he's going to sell his products no matter what it takes, so he decides to take some drastic measures. First, he loads a bunch of his products into an item box he created with the man's ring, and afterwards he begins casting summoning magic. But this time, instead of summoning a spirit, he intends to use it to summon himself. Initially, this looked like it was going to work like teleportation, but instead he summons a perfect clone of himself and sends it off to a neighboring land. If he isn't allowed to sell his items within the Hamilton region, then he's just going to have to sell them somewhere else. Several days later, Liam's clone sends a message to him about all the recent sales it has made, and at this rate, Liam might actually be able to become independent. When Liam isn't selling his goods, he uses his clone to practice his attack spells, and he has finally learned to control the magic missile spell, so he's pretty pleased with himself. All of a sudden, he hears someone approaching, so he dispels his clone and goes out to find out who it is, and to his surprise, he finds out it's Albrevet. Albrevet wastes no time and immediately asks Liam what he wants to become in the future. Liam knows Albrevet only asking because he wants to figure out if Liam is really a threat to his position as the successor of the family. But as mentioned before, Liam has no interest in family politics, so he tells Albrevet that he wants to become independent in the future. Albrevet is relieved since he won't have to compete with Liam for succession rights if he becomes independent. So to help him become independent as quickly as possible, he offers to put in a good word for him so he can join the Hunters Guild. Later that day, Liam heads to the Hunters Guild, and as soon as he enters, all eyes are on him because the Hunters don't think a kid like Liam is qualified to be here. Liam walks up to the front desk to meet the guild master, and the guild master already heard about him from Albrevet, but he's still going to have to give Liam a test to gauge his ability. He tells Liam to fire an offensive spell at him with any incantation he wants, but Liam had never heard of incantation before, so he had no idea what the guild master was talking about. The guild master had been expecting Liam to be slightly stronger than average since Albrevet recommended him, but after Liam fires his spell, the guild master has a near-death experience. Luckily, Liam had the sense to not aim directly at him, so after calming himself down, he grants Liam B-rank status. Now that Liam has an official ranking, he heads out to complete his first mission, but before he leaves, he is approached by a girl. She introduces herself as Asuna Aquage, and she was really impressed by what Liam is capable of, so she asks if he wants to team up with her. Liam was planning to go out solo, but he doesn't mind having a partner with him, so he agrees to team up with Asuna, and she is overjoyed to hear that. She then grabs his hand and leads him away so they can get to work, but Liam is confused since neither of them has actually been given a mission yet. Asuna explains to him that missions are only handed out to parties that are A rank or higher. The rest of the ranks have to go out and slay dangerous monsters for a reward, and as luck would have it, they just so happen to run into a wolf monster. Unfortunately, it turns out to be an entire pack of wolves, so Asuna isn't sure they'll be able to handle this many. Liam, on the other hand, thinks this should be an easy victory with the two of them, so he asks Asuna to finish the wolves off once he has incapacitated them. He then summons a couple of earth spirits and uses them as bait to get the attention of the wolves, and once the wolves bite down, Liam has the gnomes expand to lock their jaws in place. And now that they can no longer move, Asuna is free to cut them down one by one. All in all, there were 42 wolves killed, and when they present the carcasses to the guild master, he is so impressed by their skill that he tells them he has a special mission for them. There's apparently an important person coming to this town in a few days, so he wants Liam and Asuna to take out an armored caterpillar that has been blocking the path. There'll be a disaster if an important person coming were to get hurt while visiting their town, so Liam is taking this very seriously. They find the caterpillar fairly easily, but no matter what they try, they can't seem to kill it. All Asuna strikes and all Liam's magic just bounces off its tucked shell, and if this keeps up, then they'll never be able to take this thing down. While taking a break, Asuna jokes that the only thing that could get through that caterpillar's armor would be a meteor, but there's no way they can get a meteor to strike right here. However, Asuna's comment gave Liam an amazing idea, so he asks her to draw the caterpillar's attention while he gets ready. Asuna has no idea what Liam is planning to do, but she goes along with his plan and distracts the caterpillar, and once it is in position, Liam opens his item box and drops a massive boulder on the worm, killing it in one blow. The method was so effective, in fact, that they managed to kill a second caterpillar. Liam was worried there might be more caterpillars around, so he used his search spell after killing the first one, and sure enough, he found the second lurking nearby, so he killed it too. The guild master is so impressed with Asuna and Liam's performance that he offers to give them 5 times the original reward, and a couple days later, when the important person is set to arrive, Liam, Asuna, and a lot of the townspeople wait outside to see who it is. Liam's father and Albrevit are there as well to greet their guest, but for some reason, the man seems to have taken an interest in Liam. A lot of stuff happens and James ends up calling a meeting with Liam, but Liam has no idea why. The man introduces himself as James Stanley, and he wants to get straight to the point, so he asks Liam how he got Raymond's ring. He thinks Liam must have stolen it, but Liam gets up and yells that he would never do such a thing to his master. He explains the whole encounter he had with that man in the forest, and after hearing the whole story, Stanley finds it really amusing since that sounds exactly like something Raymond would do. He apologizes for accusing Liam of theft since he hadn't realized Raymond took on a student, but since he's here anyway, he wants to see how strong Raymond's student really is. He tells his assistant, Simon, to go stand over in the corner and asks Liam to fire his most powerful spell at Simon. Liam agrees to the test, so he gets into position and prepares to cast his magic missiles, but for an extra boost, he decides to use an incantation. He recently learned that incantation amplifies the magic power used in casting a spell, and for the best effect, the words used in the incantation must have some significance to the caster, so Liam starts reciting the names of his favorite idols. The incantation evidently works because Liam's spell casting is boosted from the usual 7 to 11 at once, and poor Simon over here can't handle it, so the attack breaks through his shield and he gets hit. James is impressed with Liam's capacity for high-volume magic, so he offers him a reward and says he will be granted the status of a knight. Becoming a knight means Liam is now independent, so Albrevit will probably stop watching him from now on since he's no longer a threat to his succession. Anyway, James knows Raymond really well, so he knows that Raymond loves playing practical jokes and asks if anything like that has happened to him recently. And now that he mentions it, when Liam was training to master his item box, he ended up using it to drain out the lake in the forest. But when he did this, he found a letter left there by Raymond. It was addressed to Liam and said that Raymond had wanted to give Liam 100 kilograms of gold as a graduation gift, but it all sank to the bottom of the lake, so instead he decided to turn the gold into gold dust and mix it into the river. Liam thinks it was just a waste of all that gold to dump it all in that river, but from what James knows about Raymond, there's probably more to it than just a practical joke, so it might be worth looking a little deeper into it. Liam takes James' advice and decides to head back to the lake to suck up all the water again, but this time he gets the bright idea to use his item box to separate the gold dust from the water, and when he does this, it activates a hidden door. Inside, Liam finds a note from Raymond, and it says Liam can have this maximum level grimoire as his real graduation gift since he figured out the riddle. Raymond himself was never able to master it, but Liam might get some use out of it. Liam takes a look at the grimoire and finds an interesting spell called Another World in there, and after several hours of trial and error, Liam finally manages to get the spell to work. The Another World spell creates a separate dimension which Liam has full control over, so he can open a gateway anywhere, and no one can enter without his permission. Liam is overjoyed by all the amazing things he could do with this spell, so as soon as he has the chance, he goes out hunting with Asuna again. They are up against a massive frog this time, so Liam first tries using his fire spirits to attack it, but that wasn't enough to kill the frog. In retaliation, the frog begins charging up its ultimate attack, So just before they get hit, Liam pulls Asuna into his pocket dimension. Thanks to this, both of them remain safe from the frog's electrocution, and once the frog finally runs out of energy, they finish it off. A little while later, they return to the guild with the frog's magic stone, and the guild master can hardly believe that they managed to pull it off. That quest was A rank, so he at least expected them to struggle a little, but it looks like it was barely a challenge for Liam. Asuna gets upset at the guild master because he keeps referring to Liam alone even though she fought alongside him. The guild master apologizes, but since Liam kind of did everything, he forgot Asuna was even a member of the team. He can see that Asuna is upset that she's so much weaker than Liam, so he does the responsible thing and suggests that Liam make Asuna his slave. Neither of them thinks it's a good idea, since as a slave, Asuna would be forced to obey any commands Liam gives, but then the guild master mentions the fact that as Liam's familiar, Asuna would automatically grow stronger in proportion to Liam's strength. And as soon as she hears that, she's on board with becoming Liam's slave. Sure, she won't be able to refuse if Liam ends up making pervy requests, but Asuna trusts that he wouldn't do that. And even if he did, she wouldn't mind. They end up creating the contract, and once it's done, Asuna immediately disappears. Everyone is shocked, but then she reappears behind Liam and explains that she just moved really fast. After the contract was established, Asuna heard a voice in her head that told her a unique skill has been acquired. Speedster. Liam thinks this is incredibly interesting, so interesting in fact that he wants to try it out again, but making familiar contracts forces obedience, so it would be hard to find someone who is willing to lose their freedom in exchange for a skill. Fortunately, Asuna knows someone who'd be perfect for it. They go to see Asuna's friend, Jody, and explain the whole situation to her. Jody's got nothing better to do right now, so she agrees to become Liam's familiar, and after the contract is formed, everyone asks her if she unlocked a unique skill as well, but rather than tell them what it is, Jody walks out of the guild and returns with 2 sandwiches. She then gives one of the sandwiches to a guy with a broken hand, and the second he eats it, his arm recovers. Jody explains that her unique skill allows her to heal people with the food she makes. Several days later, Liam is meeting with James again, and he informs Liam that Princess Scarlet is coming to visit him. Liam doesn't understand why the princess would come all the way here for someone like him, but James reminds Liam that he completed an A-rank quest and can cast up to 11 spells at once, plus he can grant people unique skills by becoming their master. The princess is particularly interested in seeing Liam demonstrate the abilities of his slaves, but Liam firmly refuses to do such a thing. James can't believe Liam truly wishes to turn down a request from the queen herself, but even though Jody and Asuna are Liam's familiars, they are still his friends, so he will not turn them into a circus act for someone's amusement. James can see that Liam isn't willing to budge on his refusal, so he tells him he can leave. And once Liam is gone, it is revealed that the maid that had been serving them during the conversation was really the princess. James apologizes to the princess for Liam's refusal, but she actually found it quite interesting that Liam is willing to go against royalty to protect his friends, but she wants to see if he will do the same when talking to her face-to-face. The next day, Liam is summoned to meet Princess Scarlet, and this time she's not in disguise, so Liam will have to be careful about how he responds to her. Liam enters her palace and kneels before her, but Scarlet wants to get down to business, so she calls for a seat to be brought for Liam and mentions that she had heard about him defeating an armored caterpillar and a giant frog. In particular, she's really impressed that he was able to kill a frog without using any high-level magic, because this is the first time anyone has managed to pull that off. However, she is even more interested in Liam's familiars, so she asks him to show her what they can do. Liam can tell that she is trying to use her authority to force him to obey, but he can't accept her request. Scarlet asks him if he really intends to refuse a direct request from a noble, but regardless of what the consequences may be, Liam remains firm on his answer and absolutely refuses to turn his friends into a circus act. He was fully prepared to face Scarlet's wrath for refusing her, but to his surprise, she bursts out in laughter. Liam is the first person she has met who stays true to their morals even in the face of higher authority, and she finds that really amusing, so she wants to reward him. She declares that from this moment on, Liam will be given the title of Baron. Liam freaks out because he doesn't think he did anything to deserve such a title, but Scarlet has taken a liking to him, and she's the princess, so she can do whatever she wants. This way, Liam's family won't lose their status as nobility, but there's something else Scarlet wants to give him. She presents Liam with a familiar contract grimoire, and Liam is way more excited about this than he was about becoming a baron. So he thanks Scarlet profusely and goes on his merry way to practice with his new grimoire. A little while later, Liam is sitting out in the forest while reading the grimoire, and he is able to use the spells inside pretty easily, but until he masters the book, his contracts won't be permanent. While he's still practicing, he notices Bruno walk up to him, and he's really surprised since Bruno got married and left home a while ago. He asks Bruno why he's here, but he doesn't have a real reason. He just wanted to come hang out with his brother, mainly so he could congratulate Liam in person for becoming a baron, as it's a massive accomplishment. He tells Liam that he basically outranks their father now, but Liam doesn't understand what he means since their father is a count and Liam is only a baron. Bruno explains that while barons are lower ranked than other counts, this country separates nobles into different categories. Basically, those who accomplish something and earn their titles on their own, and those who inherited their title. So of course those who earn their titles are seen as more impressive. Liam had no idea that was how it worked, but even if he now outranks his father, he doesn't really care since he just wants to learn magic. As he's walking through the halls, he comes across Albrevet, so he greets him. But Albrevet rudely ignores him, so Liam is left wondering why he is so mad. Meanwhile, Albrevet is absolutely furious that his stupid little brother is somehow overshadowing him. While he's walking, he overhears a couple of maids talking about how much Liam has been accomplishing lately, and he takes great offense to this. So he yells at them and says if they think Liam is so amazing, then maybe they should quit and go work for him instead. The maids realize Albrevet is jealous of Liam, so they quickly apologize for offending him. But Albrevet isn't done yet, so he asks the maids if they think Liam is better than him. The answer is pretty clear since one of them is a magic prodigy who earned himself a title at the age of 12, while the other is an entitled brat who hasn't a single noteworthy thing in his life. However, the maids would like to keep their jobs, so they don't say this and instead tell Albrevet that he is better than Liam. Albrevet then walks away in a huff, and he is determined to prove that he really is better than Liam, so he swears that he will accomplish something as well. The next day, Liam meets with Asuna and Jody in town, and the three of them seem to have become quite popular. Mostly because of how pretty Jody and Asuna are, and consequently, every guy in the crowd is staring daggers at Liam out of jealousy. Moving on, Liam wants the three of them to officially form a party, but he doesn't want to force them to do something they don't want to do, so he asks if they are okay with it. Neither Asuna nor Jody have any reason to object to Liam's idea, so they agree to form a party with him, and later that day, they all head out into the forest on a mission. Jody uses her bow and arrow to strike a wolf in the neck, and while it's weakened, Asuna runs in and finishes it off with her sword. Liam compliments Asuna because she has become a lot faster since she became his familiar. And speaking of improvements, Jody notices that she no longer has old lady vision thanks to the contract making her a kid again. Liam asks if it's always a good thing to have better vision, and as far as Jody is concerned, she would ever say no to having better eyesight, especially since she's an archer. Since that's the case, Liam raises his hand and casts an enhancement spell on Jody's eyes, allowing her to see way farther than she could before. Asuna asks Liam about what he just did, so he explains that he just used a basic enhancement spell to give Jody better vision. Asuna thinks that sounds really cool, so she asks Liam to cast an enhancement spell on her as well, but Liam doesn't think that's such a good idea. He could probably enhance Asuna's combat power, but they would be risky since there's a high chance she would break her bones under the stress of her new strength. But something like boosted vision has no real drawbacks. With her 20/20 vision, Jody can practically snipe anything that is within range of her bow, and it's all thanks to Liam, so she's really grateful. After a long day of hunting, Liam and the others return to the guild, but they are shocked to see the place in absolute chaos. They ask what happened and are told that Albrevet caused a huge mess by breaking the forest seal. Liam immediately realizes that Albrevet must have attempted to defeat the monster seal in the forest out of twisted jealousy, and Liam believes this is partially his fault, so he runs out to the forest to assess the situation. He and the others soon arrive on the scene, and it is much worse than anything they could have imagined. Dozens of soldiers are badly wounded and many more are already dead, so Liam is absolutely horrified. He then spots Albrevet lying on the ground injured and runs over to check on him, but as soon as Albrevet sees him, he gets up in a frenzy and starts yelling that he hasn't failed yet. Just then, the guildmaster takes a stick and whacks Albrevet over the head with it because the situation is already crazy enough as it is, so he doesn't need a crazy, insecure noble running around. Once Albrevet is taken away, the guildmaster approaches Liam and tells him he's glad he came. Asuna asks him about what's going on, so he explains that the dragon fiend Reborn used to be sealed inside these woods thanks to the hard work of Liam's great-grandfather, but Albrevet undid that seal in a failed attempt to kill Reborn, so it's now on the loose. They know how to reseal the beast, and the guildmaster has already gathered all the necessary people to do it, but there's something preventing them from sealing Reborn away again, and that's Reborn's children. The little Radons are actually the ones responsible for all the damage that was done here. And if this much carnage can be caused by the little ones, then imagine what the real Reborn can do. Luckily, since Reborn has been sealed away for so long, it'll take about a week for him to regain his strength and attack. So if they can manage to reseal Reborn before then, they can avert a disaster. Liam plans to help as much as possible, so he races over to Raiden's location and finds him being guarded by the 3 little Radons. The little Radons aren't that big, so Asuma decides to try her luck and runs in for an attack, but as she does so, one of the little Radons shoots a fireball at her, and although she manages to dodge it, the tree behind her gets completely vaporized. Liam then tries using his magic missiles to attack, but the Radons use their fireballs to counter, so Liam doesn't know what to do anymore. His strongest attack spell did not affect them, but he still has one more trick he could try, so he orders Asuna to take Jody and run. The Radons all charge at Liam, but before they could get to him, he opens his Anotherworld gate and lets them fall in, so they are all trapped inside now. The Guildmaster can't believe that Liam was able to defeat all 3 of the little Radons on their own, and neither can Liam since that was a really close call. Now that the little Radons can't interfere anymore, the Guildmaster calls for everyone to begin sealing Raiden away again. While that's going on, Asuna and Jody return to Liam's side and he's relieved that they are alright. They ask him about the spell he used to defeat the little Radons, so Liam explains that it's a spell that creates a separate dimension. He trapped the little Radons in there, but there's no risk of them escaping since at his current level of mastery, whenever he closes the gate, everything inside the dimension disappears. Just then, Liam hears a voice in his head, and in the next second, he is pulled into the mind of Raiden. Raiden refers to Liam as a human with an immense soul, and asks him who he is, but Liam doesn't understand the question since as far as he knows, he's just a regular human. Liam may say that, but Raiden isn't convinced since he can clearly see that Liam's body and soul do not match. Liam realizes that Raiden might be referring to the fact that he reincarnated into the body of Liam Hamilton, so he wonders if Raiden might know the reason behind it, but unfortunately, Raiden has no idea. However, what he does know is that Liam's life is bound to be an interesting one, so he offers to make a deal with him. He wants to accompany Liam through his life, and he promises that he will not bring any harm to Liam or those around him if he agrees. In fact, he offers to help Liam build on top of the skills he already possesses, and Liam doesn't sense any animosity coming from Raiden, so he ends up agreeing to the deal. All of a sudden, Raiden's body dematerializes and is absorbed into Liam's soul, leaving a dragon mark on his hand. Liam can feel the power of Raiden flowing through his body, so he decides to do a little test run and fires his magic missile into the sky. To his surprise, he is now able to control and fire 17 spells at the same time. It must be thanks to the power boost Raiden granted him, but using Raiden's power seems to have some negative side effects since everyone around Liam begins to suffer headaches from being exposed to such dense mana. Liam notices everyone struggling and realizes his mana is the cause, so he suppresses it and apologizes for acting so thoughtlessly. As his way of showing his sincerity, he offers the Guildmaster 10 kilograms worth of gold dust and tells him to use it to pay for the treatment of those who were badly injured in this fight. Later that night, Liam has a meeting with his father, and his father is really grateful for what Liam did since it prevented a great disaster from being caused by Albrecht's short-sightedness. He also heard that James is still in town, so word of Liam's great accomplishment should reach the royal capital soon enough. That night, Liam goes to bed, but by the time he wakes up the next morning, he realizes that 2 new spells just spawned in his head. He rushes outside so he can test out the spells. With several hours of practice, he is finally able to use one of them and summons a little Raiden. With a little more practice, Liam will be able to make the little Raiden useful for combat, but as of now, it's pretty much just a cute pet. While Liam is playing with the little Raiden, Princess Scarlet happens to walk up behind him, and she recognizes the magic Liam just used as holy magic. She already knew Liam was impressive, but to think he would be capable of using holy magic at such a young age. Anyway, that's not why Scarlet is here today. She is here to give Liam his reward for defeating the Dragon Fiend. She personally wanted to grant him a higher title of nobility, but the other nobles were really opposed to the idea of a landless child being promoted so frequently, so instead, she decides to give him the Order of the Phoenix, 3rd class. While she's here, she also wants to hear about how Liam managed to defeat the dragon, since depending on the details, she may have to declare him as their country's hero. However, the princess is completely horrified upon learning that Liam absorbed the Dragon Fiend. She thinks this means she was totally wrong about him, but then again, she did just see him use holy magic, so maybe not. In any case, she tells Liam to keep that detail secret no matter what, and the next day, Liam receives a chest filled with 3,000 gold coins as hush money. He doesn't understand why the princess wants him to stay quiet so badly, but he's just going to have to go along with it. However, even though he already got his hush money from the princess, James grew suspicious and called for a meeting to ask Liam what happened. Liam tries to deny anything special happened, but for the princess to pay him so much hush money, it must have been a massive secret. So he interrogates Liam a little and eventually he ends up cracking and reveals that he can use holy magic. He demonstrates one of the spells that he can use and informs James that this spell allows him to get rid of all negative status effects, including petrification and poison. He believes this is incredible, but its power is to be expected since holy magic is considered an act of God. He asks Liam if he knows anything about the War of the Three Dragons, and Liam doesn't, so he begins explaining the story to him. Long ago, there was a battle between three great dragons that lasted until only one stood victorious. It is said that the dragon's victory was largely due to its use of holy magic, and after that, the dragon supposedly joined a human, and its magic was used to found this kingdom. When James says join, the first thing that pops into Liam's head is that the dragon and the human got married and had children, but that's not the case. James points out that Liam is a prime example of what it looks like to join a dragon, and now that he thinks about it, Raiden did enter his body, so the two of them are technically joined. James tells Liam that he is basically recreating the legend of this nation's founding, but as amazing as that is, there are more pressing matters to discuss. The Hamilton family's noble status came from the achievement of their grandfathers sealing away a dragon fiend. But it turns out that Raiden was not a dragon fiend in the first place, but rather the nation's founding dragon, so Liam's family wrongfully sealed this nation's founder. If this information gets out, the Hamilton family's status as nobility would almost certainly be dissolved, and Liam doesn't want that since he knows how desperate his father and Albrevet are to maintain their status. But there's something that James is even more concerned about since there's a chance that Raiden is angry about being sealed away, so he may be plotting his revenge against their nation. However, Liam has a little chat with Raiden in his head, and Raiden says he has no intention of retaliating against the humans, so all he is interested in is watching Liam develop. James says this is terrific news, and it wouldn't be a stretch to say that Liam is the savior of the kingdom for being able to grab the attention of Raiden. A little while later, Liam arrives at the guild, but before he could enter, the girls drag him away. Liam has no idea what's going on, so when they get a good distance away from the guild, he asks them what's going on. They explain that the guild was filled to the brim with people who were trying to join his party after hearing that Liam defeated a dragon fiend, and they all kept begging Asuna and Jody to convince him. The two of them wrote a list of all prospective applicants, and honestly, none of these adventurers are particularly impressive, but Liam is the party leader, so the decision is up to him. After that, Liam decides to head back to his house to read through the list, but as soon as he walks through the door, one of the maids says she has something to show him. These are all requests from the girls of various noble families because they want to become Liam's wife. Liam had kind of expected this to happen since he's popular now, but this many is more than he's prepared to handle. Even his brother is bringing him a letter at this point. But thankfully, he's not the one trying to marry Liam. It's one of the relatives of the family he married into. Since he's here, Bruno asks Liam what he did because it's not normal to receive this many marriage proposals at once, even if he did defeat the dragon. The only people Liam has told about the holy magic thing are the princess and James, but because the princess paid him so much hush money, the other nobles figured out that there must be something major going on with him. It's a bit of a pain, but Liam can't deny that he is really enjoying all the popularity he has now. Later that day, Liam heads out into the forest with Jody and Asuna because he has something he would like to show them. He opens his pocket dimension, and upon entering, Asuna and Jody find a huge house in the middle of the room. Liam explains that he had a carpenter build it, and then he moved it in here using his item box. And that's all impressive. But Asuna is concerned that the house will just disappear like what happened with the Raiden Juniors back then. Liam explains that he has fully mastered this spell and nothing inside will disappear anymore, which is why he put all this stuff in here. He gives Asuna and Jody a tour through the house, and they are both enjoying themselves, but Jody brings up the fact that this place is constantly bright, so it would be hard to go to sleep there. Liam comes up with an idea and decides to summon a shade spirit to darken the area. And while it does work, it works a little too well because the entire place is pitch black now. Liam tries to brighten it up a bit by having a fire spirit light the fireplace, but this still looks too much like a horror movie setting, so he asks the shade if it can control the level of darkness it creates. Unfortunately, the shade is low level, so it doesn't have control over its darkness, and although a mid-level shade would be able to do it, Liam hasn't learned the spell to summon one yet. Asuna thinks it's a real shame that the low-level shade can't just become a mid-level one. That's when Liam remembers that his familiar contracts level people up, so he forms a contract with the shade, and it indeed levels up. The shade thanks Liam for forming a contract with it, and since it is now mid-level, it limits the level of darkness in the area to make it look like nighttime. He then tells Liam that he can call on him anytime, but Liam isn't sure he'll be able to summon the shade anymore since he doesn't know how to use mid-level spirit magic. However, the shade points out that Liam is wearing a magic storage ring, so he should be able to use it to absorb and summon him whenever he wants. Liam hadn't thought of that, So he tried it, and the ring really does absorb the mid-level shade. He then does the same thing with all of his other spirits and levels them up before storing them in his ring, so Liam now basically has a mid-level summoning grimoire of his own. The next day, Liam heads out into the forest at Raiden's request, and once he gets to the designated spot, Raiden asks him to summon one of the Raiden Juniors. Liam summons it, and the Raiden Juniors create an opening in a barrier that reveals dozens of pixies that have been hidden in the forest. As soon as the pixies realize that Liam is a human, they all start flying away so they don't get hurt. Liam tries to calm them down by explaining that he isn't their enemy. He tells them that Raiden is the one who told him to come here, and after hearing Raiden's name, the fairies seem to trust him a little more. Pixie wings are valuable ingredient items and potions, so humans almost hunted them into extinction at one point. That's why Raiden took it upon himself to protect them by creating a barrier in the forest. However, since he's now living inside Liam, he can't maintain the barrier anymore, so he wants Liam to protect the pixies in his place. To do this, Liam first wants to form familiar contracts with all the pixies, so he asks them if they are okay with that. The pixies trust Liam since he is working on behalf of Raiden, and since he's going to be forming contracts with them, Raiden asks Liam to give them names as well since naming things gives additional power to human magic. Liam forms a contract and decides to name the first pixie, Reina. However, to his surprise, once the contract is completed, Reina is transformed from a pixie to an elf. Raiden thinks it's interesting that the pixies evolved into elves, but he isn't that surprised by it. However, Liam is totally confused and has no idea how this could have possibly happened. Raiden explains that by forming a magic contract and naming the pixie at the same time, the magic power from both actions resonated and created a stronger response than normal, which is why the pixie evolved so much. From now on, Raiden says it would be best if Liam named every familiar that he forms contracts with. After seeing the effects of the contract, all the other pixies are eager to form a contract and ask Liam to name them as well. Once all the pixies have been turned into elves, Reina asks him for some orders since they are his familiars. Liam hadn't really thought that far ahead since he just come here at Raiden's request, but since the pixies are all elves now, he suggests that they should start building a village for themselves. He also appoints Reina as the leader of the village since she was the first pixie he evolved, and she's the only one whose name he remembers right now. Once that has been settled, the elves get to work planning their village, and Liam is completely exhausted since he used way too much magic power when forming all those contracts. Just then, he senses a lot of magic power coming from deeper in the forest, so he goes to check it out and finds this golden fruit hanging off a tree. He can sense a lot of mana coming off it, so he asks Reina about it, and she tells him that it is a fruit that pixies make. They would collect mana floating through the air and condense it into one place, so it's basically mana honey. Liam asks her if he can eat it, and Reina has no objections, so he cuts the fruit down and takes a bite. And when he does, not only is his magic power restored, but his overall magic capacity is increased as well, so he can now cast 19 spells without a chant. The next day, Liam comes back to the village to check on how things are going, and Reina comes out to greet him, but she has some bad news. Even though he told them to build a village for themselves, they don't actually know how to build houses, so this is the best they could do. Liam figured something like this might happen, so he's prepared to teach them how to build homes for themselves. However, his lesson is interrupted when they hear one of the elves scream for help. Bandits happen to make their way into the forest, and as soon as they spotted an elf, they decided to kidnap and sell her off for money. Liam obviously isn't going to let that happen, so he demands that the bandits release Susie at once, but bandits are bandits, so they don't listen and instead try to attack him. Liam summons a clone and uses it to launch a simultaneous attack on the bandits and knock them out. While he may have saved Susie, he now realizes that this forest is far too dangerous for a group of elves to live, so he intends to move them somewhere else. He wants to put them in his pocket dimension for now, but he's not sure they'll all fit since the space isn't that big. However, when he takes a look inside, he realizes that it's gotten a lot bigger since the last time he saw it. It's probably because of that pixie honey that he ate yesterday, and thus works out great for him, so he tells all the pixies to get inside so he can take them to a safe place. A little while later, Liam has returned to his land and opens his pocket dimension for the elves to come out, and they are shocked to realize that they are in an entirely different area now. Liam tells them that he brought them to his land so they won't have to worry about being attacked anymore, and while the elves are grateful, they are even more amazed that Liam was able to transport all of them here with a single spell. They all bow down to ask Liam to become their king, and if he agrees to rule them, they swear to do whatever he asks. Liam feels the need to protect them, so he agrees to become their ruler, but he asks them not to call him a king because he doesn't want to have to deal with the politics of that. Anyway, since he's their leader, he has to find land for them to live on. 4 days pass, and Liam is still trying to get a place for the elves to live, which is why he has been practicing the new magic Raiden gave him non-stop. And when he finally figures it out, he tells everyone to line up. He then proceeds to teleport them all about 100 kilometers from where they were before to a place called the Sealed Islands. Raiden is the one who sealed this land, but he has permitted them to use it as much as they like. This would have been a 4-day trip if they traveled normally, but with the teleportation magic he learned from Raiden, he can instantly travel to any location he has been to before. He tells the elves that they can live here from now on, but he's still going to need someone to build houses for them. For now, he's leaving the Raiden Jr.'s in charge of protecting the elves until he gets back, so he teleports back home. There he is visited by the princess, and she wanted to ask him if Raiden ever mentioned a place called the Promised Lands. Liam never heard of the Promised Lands, but Raiden did permit him to use a place called the Sealed Lands, so the princess asks Liam if he can take her there. Liam says he's fine with it, but in exchange, he needs something from her as well. He asks her to bring one of the court engineers because there's a project he needs to complete. However, he doesn't intend to take the actual engineer, so he makes a clone of Golek and teleports the clone, as well as the princess with him to the Sealed Lands. Upon arrival, the princess is certain that this must be the Promised Lands, so she recounts the legend that says that humanity's salvation lies in the Promised Lands, and this ring is said to be the key. The ring has been in the royal family for generations, but it begins reacting to Liam, and as he touches it, a huge chunk of the land begins to float at his command, so the princess bows down to him and asks Liam to form a nation here for the sake of humanity. Liam really doesn't want to do it, but the princess pledges her loyalty and all her resources to help make it happen, so he has no choice. Under the instructions of the Golek clone, the elves have been making steady progress on their village, and while they are doing that, Liam works on taking down all the monsters that roam this land with his magic. After he finally takes down a giant turtle, Liam notices Princess Scarlet standing behind him. Scarlet apologizes for staring, but she was just so mesmerized by her master's outstanding magic power. Liam still isn't comfortable with this whole master-servant relationship Scarlet wants, so he tells her she doesn't have to serve him after all. Her status as second princess of the kingdom far outranks Liam. However, Scarlet is doing this because she wants to. Her family has dragon blood flowing through their veins, which is why the women in her family are usually married off to build ties with other nations. That's why she would much rather serve under the dragon god, Raiden, than remain the princess of the kingdom. After seeing how devoted Scarlet really is, Raiden takes a liking to her and tells her to walk 1 kilometer to the north because there's something there that she might like. She and Liam follow Raiden's directions, and in the middle of the forest, they find the entrance to some ancient ruins. They head inside, and there they discover this metal dragon sitting in the middle of the room. As they approach, the dragon wakes up, and it looks like it's about to attack, so Liam asks Raiden what's going on. Raiden explains that this thing is one of the guards he created, and it's definitely going to attack them, but if Liam can take out one of the ancient letters on his forehead, it'll become an obedient pet. That seems easy enough, so Liam teleports up to the dragon's forehead, and with a holy lance, he manages to pierce one of the letters, deactivating the dragon's defense mode. The dragon then reacts to the dragon blood flowing through Scarlet's body and decides to listen to her, so Scarlet happily accepts the dragon guard. But when Liam says he wants to return to the surface, Scarlet says she is going to wait here for a while since she doesn't want to leave her dragon alone until it is fully recovered from the wound Liam's attack caused. Liam still can't get used to the idea of having someone as important as Scarlet serve him, but Raiden suggests that Liam just needs to become someone equally as important. That way, it wouldn't be awkward anymore, but it's definitely easier said than done. Just then, Liam notices a disturbance coming from the direction of the village the elves are building, so he teleports over to see what's going on, and to his horror, he finds the village in complete ruin. The elves tell them that this was caused by some wolfmen that attacked all of a sudden, and speaking of wolfmen, they show back up and begin demanding that the intruders leave this holy land immediately. Liam can tell that the wolfmen have mistaken them for intruders, so he tries explaining that they were given permission to stay here, but before he could say anything, the wolfman proceeds to attack him, so Liam is forced to teleport out of the way and defend himself with a little magic. The wolfman still seems determined to kick Liam and his friends out of this holy land, but then Liam pulls out a Raiden Jr., proving that he's affiliated with Raiden. The wolfman now realizes his mistake and sincerely apologizes for destroying the village, but the elves say it's fine since the wolves were just doing their duty since they serve Raiden. The girls suggest that the wolfman should become Liam's familiars as well. The leader of the wolfmen thinks it's a good idea, so they agree to become Liam's familiar, and Liam has no reason to refuse, so he creates a contract with the leader, naming her Chris. The next day, Liam returns to the village to see how things are going, and with the addition of Chris and all the other wolfmen, progress on the village has been going a lot quicker. As soon as Chris sees Liam, she jumps up to give him a hug, and when he asks how the construction has been going, Chris points in that direction and says they are still rebuilding one of the homes they destroyed yesterday. Once again, she sincerely apologizes for acting so rashly yesterday, but Liam says it's fine as long as the Wolfman can help repair the homes. Although things would definitely go a lot faster if Liam could just use magic to repair the homes instead, but there's no spell for that in the ring. Raiden tells him he can just create a repair spell for himself if it doesn't already exist. Liam had no idea it was possible for him to just create his own spells, so Raiden explains that all he needs to do is clearly imagine every step of the process of what he's trying to accomplish, and once he has done that, he casts the spell on a piece of wood and asks Chris to smash it for him. Chris does as instructed, but to her surprise, right after smashing it, the piece of wood repairs itself as good as new. Liam explains that this is the effect of the spell he just came up with, Keep Memory. It allows inanimate objects to maintain a particular state no matter what, so if he uses this on the homes, no matter what happens, the buildings will stay standing. After getting the hang of this spell creation thing, Liam begins experimenting with all kinds of spells and ends up creating explosive magic missiles. He intends to continue inventing more spells, but all of a sudden, he gets called because there's an emergency. Humans have invaded the land and are hunting down some pixies that live here. This is really serious, so Liam rushes out to investigate and discovers the intruders. He stands in their way and warns them to turn back because this is his nation. The men think Liam is just a stupid child, so they ignore him and continue moving, but then Liam fires a warning shot to make it clear that he is not messing around. The men don't take kindly to this, so instead of just turning around and leaving, they decide to attack, and they leave Liam with no choice but to take each and every one of them out. After all the soldiers have been taken care of, Liam returns to the village where Rihanna thanks him for protecting the pixies. These pixies used to live in the forest, but they were attacked by the soldiers who were trying to capture them, so they fled here for safety. Liam tells the pixies they are all welcome to stay here for as long as they want, and he is even willing to form contracts with them. But there are a lot of pixies here, so Liam spends a lot of time naming them, and he's starting to run out of names. The next day, Liam calls a meeting with the girls in his pocket dimension and shows them the helmet to ask if they know anything about it. Scarlet recognizes the crest on the helmet as that of Palta, and like the kingdoms of Jumil and Quistador, Palta is a kingdom that borders the Promised Land. That can only mean that the men who attacked yesterday were likely Palta scouts, and if that serves as any indication, then scouts from Jumil and Quistador will eventually start showing up as well. The three nations were once separated by the valley, but now that Raiden's illusion barrier is no longer in place, they must be trying to claim the land for themselves. Scarlet thinks that the only way to permanently stop anyone from taking over the Promised Lands is for Liam to form a nation here, and Liam agrees, so Scarlet begins listing the things he will need to form a nation. He needs land, people, and power, and Liam clearly already has land. As for people, as Liam's popularity spreads, people will naturally flock to his side, so he doesn't have to worry about that. The only thing left to consider is military power. Liam may be strong on his own, but he needs a defense force that's strong enough to protect the land even while he's not around. With that said, Chris volunteers to protect the Promised Land and swears that she will kill anyone who tries to attack it. Liam doesn't like how violent her statement was, but Wolfmen are well suited for combat, so he decides to entrust security to her after all. Scarlet tells Liam that all he needs to do is continue building his village while demonstrating his power by driving off enemy invaders, and sooner or later, the surrounding nations will realize that it would be far more beneficial to form an alliance with him. Everyone agrees on this plan of action, but by the next day, things had progressed far quicker than Liam thought it would. He is met by a man named Leonardo, and he introduces himself as a noble from the Jumil kingdom, sent here by the king of Jumil to meet with Liam. He explains that the kingdom of Jumil does not want to fight with him, so he is here in hopes of forming an alliance with him. And if Liam agrees, the king of Jumil is willing to offer Liam Princess Scarlet's hand in marriage. Liam is a little suspicious since he hasn't done anything to warrant such an offer yet. By now, from Scarlet's previous actions, Jumil must have realized that these lands have something to do with the dragon god, so it's possible that they are trying to get on his good side because of that. However, he still isn't sure what to do about it, so he creates a telepathy spell on the spot and starts talking to Scarlet to ask if she thinks it is a good idea to accept their offer. Scarlet tells him he should accept, since if the two of them got married, then it would at least buy them half a year of time to expand their nation. Liam takes her advice and tells Leonardo that he would be honored to marry Princess Scarlet. However, he wants to postpone marriage for a year so he can fully develop his nation into something worthy of the royal family. Leonardo says he understands and leaves to relay Liam's statement to the king, and now that that's been taken care of, Liam decides to visit Princess Scarlet's mansion over in the royal capital. But it's a really long journey to get there, so he had Scarlet escort his clone back, and once the clone arrived, it teleported the real Liam here. Now that Liam has been to Scarlet's mansion, he can come back whenever he wants, and since this is his first time in the royal capital, he wishes he could go sightseeing. but since he is now the ruler of another nation, Liam needs to keep a low profile while he's here. Scarlet invites him inside to have some tea, but before Liam gets inside, he feels some of Raiden's energy radiating from this place, so he asks Scarlet if there's anything inside that could possibly be traced back to Raiden. As a matter of fact, there is something that fits that description, so Scarlet leads Liam to her mansion's cathedral, where a statue of Raiden has been preserved. This statue has been passed down through Scarlet's maternal family for generations, but Raiden had no idea this thing was still around since he had forgotten about it millennia ago. He tells Liam to go up to it and cast an all-clear spell, and when Liam does so, the statue begins to glow before being transferred onto Scarlet's body. Scarlet looks at herself and realizes she is now coated in strong-looking armor, and for some reason, she can feel immense power flowing through her body, so she attempts to cast one of Liam's spells and launches a holy lance. She manages to complete the spell, but it leaves her completely exhausted since she had to deplete all her mana to do it. Even so, the fact that she actually managed to cast the spell is amazing since she never could have done that before. Raiden explains that the armor Scarlet was just wearing was made to enhance the ability of those who wear it, and additionally grants them the ability to use some of Raiden's holy spells. Although Scarlet's body doesn't seem to be strong enough to handle the armor's full capabilities just yet. After all, this one is the golden armor, the strongest of all the armor sets that Raiden created. Scarlet could probably handle some of the lower-ranked armors, but they were all lost in battle, so there's no chance of getting one for Scarlet. Liam doesn't think that will be a problem since if Raiden created the armor to begin with, then all Liam needs to do is recreate it so Scarlet's body can handle its power. Raiden finds Liam's enthusiasm amusing, so he agrees to help him recreate the armor and tells him the first thing he will need is some high mithril. Liam asks Scarlet if she will be able to get some high mithril for the armor, and that shouldn't be a problem for her, so Liam gets to work right away. After a bit of hard work, Liam has finally created some armor that's suited to Scarlet, so he gives it to her and lets her try it out. First, she needs to form a contract with it, so Liam tells her to spill some of her blood on the statue, and after Scarlet does so, her body is once again covered in magic armor. Only this time she is able to cast Raiden's spells without collapsing. Raiden is impressed that Liam was able to replicate his armor so easily, and since they are on the topic, Raiden tells him about the most powerful set of armor he ever made, the Ruined Guardian. This is the armor set he used during the War of Gods eons ago, and he encourages Liam to try it because he thinks he could handle it. Liam and Scarlet teleport back to the village, and Liam pours a drop of blood on the Guardian Raiden before forming a contract with it. The Guardian Raiden then turns into armor and Liam equips it, allowing him to fire 37 magic spells at once. However, a feat of this magnitude is pushing the limit of what Liam is capable of, so he collapses to the ground due to mana exhaustion. Scarlet runs over to check on him, but Liam says he is fine. Raiden is incredibly impressed that Liam managed to survive because so far, only 3 people have made it out alive after putting on that armor, and Liam is the first one to actually manage to cast a spell. So if Liam truly masters the armor, he would have the power to rule the world. Liam uses some mana crystals to recover from his exhaustion, and as useful as the Guardian armor may be, he's going to put a hold on training with it for now and puts it in his item box. He then teleports Scarlet back to the capital and teleports himself to the village so he can check on things. From what he can see, everything seems to be going well, but all of a sudden, Reyna comes up to him with some important news. Apparently, a group of trolls have been spotted living near the village, and while that normally wouldn't be an issue, trolls are usually either really nice or really violent, and the ones nearby are the violent kind. They don't really pose a threat to the village, but since the emissaries from the other kingdoms will keep showing up, it would be best if Liam convinces them to join his village so no fights break out between the trolls and humans. Liam heads to the location of the trolls to see if he can come to an agreement with them, and upon arriving, he is confronted by a group of trolls. The leader of the trolls asks Liam what he is doing here, so Liam tries to explain that he is building a nation here and was hoping to recruit the trolls to join him. The troll doesn't trust humans, so he doesn't want anything to do with Liam and tells him to get out of here. But before Liam could even respond, the troll begins trying to squish him. Liam does his best to dodge because he doesn't want to have to hurt the troll, but any one of those attacks could be lethal if Liam gets hit, so he needs to be really careful. Unfortunately, while he was dodging, Liam accidentally falls into a hole in the ground and gets himself trapped. Now the troll has a clean shot at him, so Liam needs to act fast, otherwise he will be in serious danger. The troll's club hits him head-on, but luckily, Liam was able to equip the Guardian Raiden armor, and it allowed him to survive without taking any damage, although wearing it still drains a ton of Liam's mana. The troll is surprised that a human could survive one of his strikes, but it doesn't matter to him since he can just hit Liam harder next time. However, before he does that, Liam points to the troll's people behind him. In his blind rage, he did quite a bit of damage to them without realizing it, and if Liam hadn't taken that last strike head-on, he could have seriously hurt his friends with the flying debris. The troll realizes he may have acted a bit rashly, so he calms down and says he will listen to what Liam has to say. Liam thanks the troll leader for cooperating, and once all the trolls are gathered, he explains that he is building a village near here. And while it mostly comprises elves and werewolves right now, there's a chance that a lot of humans will come here in the future. In the worst-case scenario, a conflict could arise between the trolls and the humans, causing the humans to hunt down the trolls, and Liam would like to avoid that, so he wants the trolls to join his village. The troll leader understands what Liam is saying, but he wants to see Liam's village in person before he makes any decisions. Liam is fine with that, so he teleports all the trolls into the village, and the trolls are all amazed by what they see. But then the troll leader gets spotted by Chris. The two seem to know each other, and on sight, she charges at the troll and kicks him to the ground. Liam is confused by what just happened and asks Chris for an explanation, so she tells him that she and the troll go way back. Long story short, Chris and the troll both find each other very annoying, so literally every time they bump into each other, they end up fighting. To date, Chris has beaten him 307 battles, and the troll has beaten her 370 times, but speaking of which, she was really disappointed with that last battle as the troll barely put up a fight at all. She asks him if he got weaker or something, but Liam reminds Chris that she evolved into a werewolf, so the troll didn't get weaker, she just got stronger. The troll gets upset since Chris is now too strong for him to fight, but Chris tells him her power boost came from forming a contract with Liam, so she suggests the troll should do the same so they can be on equal footing again. The troll agrees, so Liam forms a contract with him and names him Guy. The contract causes Guy to evolve from a troll to a gigas, and while he may have shrunk, Liam can tell that his power increased dramatically. Now that Guy is stronger, Chris says she wants a redo of their battle, so she attacks Guy, and this time he is able to block the attacks and counter. To them, it may seem like a regular brawl, but with their current strength, even a single punch or kick could easily kill a normal person, so all the other trolls stand there in amazement. Liam tells them he can give them names too if they want, so the trolls graciously accept, and Liam now has to come up with 50 more names on the spot. Once all the trolls have formed a contract with Liam, he asks them to do a small favor for him, so they head back to the canyon and begin collecting huge rocks for him. Guy and the other trolls get to work for him, and Chris tries to help as well, but she is nowhere near as strong as Guy, so he tells her to just leave the manual labor to him. She refuses to give up, but eventually her legs give up instead, so Guy lifts the boulder off her back and asks Chris if she's alright. Chris is fine, but her pride isn't, so she runs off in embarrassment. After all the rocks have been gathered, Liam thanks Guy and the others for helping him, but Guy doesn't understand what he plans to use all these rocks for. Later explains that earlier, when he first met the trolls, he noticed a lot of ores there, so he wants to try melting down the rocks to extract the metals. He summons a gnome and a salamander to create a furnace and blast the rocks until he ends up with a ton of iron, some copper, a little gold, and a tiny bit of mithril. Liam is really disappointed since he was hoping he could get more mithril out of the ores, as mithril is the main ingredient used to make those armor sets. Liam asks Raiden if it is really necessary to use mithril for the armor, and Raiden says mithril is vital since no other metals are strong enough to handle the stress the armor will go through. However, while Liam still doesn't have enough mithril, he does have a ton of iron, so he decides to just try his luck with the iron and see how it turns out. He melts down the iron and has his gnome make the mold for the armor so he can pour in the metal. And once that's done, he begins infusing it with Raiden's mana, while also giving it a name for good measure. He decided to name the battle armor Apollo after the sun, and after pulling out of the mold, we see that the Apollo battle armor was made in the shape of the sun. Liam figured that naming it would be more effective if the armor's form and its name matched, and it seems to have worked because the battle armor creation was successful. However, Liam runs into a separate problem that evening. Even though he successfully made battle armor out of iron, he still needs to come up with individual names for the armor sets for them to work, and he is all out of ideas for good names. After racking his brain all night, Liam was able to make 15 sets of armor, so he decided to distribute them evenly among the elves, werewolves, and trolls. Everyone gathers outside to test their new armor with mock battles, and both Guy and Chris seem to be enjoying themselves since they are stronger than ever before. Just then, a group of bandits happens to find their way into the forest, and as soon as they spot the elves, they immediately plan to kidnap and sell them all for money. However, they must be lacking a few brain cells because they think it's a good idea to threaten the elves here, even though there's a group of trolls and werewolves right next to them. The leader of the bandits declares that he will be taking the elves with him, and as long as they cooperate, he won't have to hurt them. Liam thinks he should do something, but before he can act, Rana tells him to let them handle this on their own. She then calls over one of the weakest elves, Mina, and tells her to beat up those bandits. Normally, Mina wouldn't be able to hurt a fly, but with the armor Liam gave her, she is able to instantly knock out all the bandits. Liam is amazed by how much strength the armor granted Mina, so if he can just make enough for all the elves, they'll be able to defend themselves from any future threats. But that means he's going to have to come up with even more names for the armor. While Liam is agonizing over it, the bandit leader manages to sneak up behind him, and he tries to use Liam as a hostage and demands that everyone listen to him if they don't want Liam to die. However, no one reacts because they know the bandit can't hurt Liam, and a second later, Liam hits him with a power missile straight to the chin. The rest of the bandits finally realize that they are no match for Liam after seeing their boss get uppercut into a coma, so they turn and flee the forest. That night, Liam goes into his pocket dimension because there's something he needs to do here. He summons a bunch of water spirits and tells them that he collected a lot of seawater and he would like them to separate the salt from the water so the people of the village can use it. The water spirits agree to help, so Liam begins dumping the salt water and they begin purifying it. However, one of the water spirits comes up to Liam instead because she has something to say. Liam doesn't recognize her at first, but she explains that she was the first water spirit that Liam formed a contract with, and she wants to express her gratitude because she has been able to do a lot more ever since she evolved thanks to him. She was even learning to possess physical objects now, although the spirit monarch doesn't like it when spirits interfere with the physical world too much. Liam is intrigued after hearing that there's a spirit monarch, but he is even more interested in the fact that the water spirit can possess objects. Starting from mid-level, a spirit can possess objects, and spirit-possessed equipment is known to be particularly powerful, so Liam comes up with a good idea. He asks the water spirit if she would be willing to help him out with a little experiment, and she says she is more than happy to help. First, Liam named the water spirit Zero for an additional buff, and after creating one more battle armor in the shape of a water spirit, he has Zero possess it. He successfully created possessed battle armor, so he does the same thing with the fire and earth spirits and gives all three armor sets to Reyna, Chris, and Guy. This drastically increases their power once more, and they are all eager to use their strength to serve Liam. But while Liam is only doing this to make sure he can protect his nation, he has already amassed enough military power to take over all the surrounding nations if he chooses to. And he has no plans of slowing down anytime soon because the pursuit of magic is all that matters to Liam. Now that things in Liam's kingdom are mostly settled, Liam decides to head back home for the first time in a while, and when he gets to the guild, he is met by Jody and Asuna, who are pretty upset because he disappeared on them for weeks without saying anything. Liam apologizes, but he had a lot of stuff on his plate, so he forgot to tell them about it. Asuna tells him not to worry since it isn't that big of a deal, and more importantly, she just wants him to give them their money. Liam doesn't know what they are talking about at first, so Jody reminds him that they asked him to hold on to some money for them a while back. When Princess Scarlet first paid Liam his hush money, he held a meeting with Jody and Asuna to tell them about it. He also wanted to give them their share of the money, which was this large chest full of gold coins. Asuna and Jody are hesitant to accept the hush money since they literally couldn't tell anyone about Liam's secret, even if they wanted to, since he could just order them to keep it secret. But Liam doesn't want to issue any orders, so he tells them to just take the money. Asuna and Jody eventually agree to take the money, but it won't be safe for them to have that many gold coins with them, so they ask Liam to hold onto it for them until they need it. And now, they need the money. Liam agrees to give it to them, but he's curious about what they could possibly want to spend all that money on. Neither of them say anything, but a few minutes later, they take Liam to a grimoire store and buy one for him as a gift. Liam takes a look at the grimoire, and after realizing that he has never encountered this spell before, he thanks Asuna and Jody for being so thoughtful. Afterwards, the three head back to the guild to catch up, and they find out that Liam has been building a nation recently. That explains why he was gone for so long, but now Liam asks them what they want to do. They have the choice to either join Liam's nation or they could stay in town and keep hunting, but it's not a difficult decision for them to make because they want to go wherever Liam goes. Liam is glad to hear that, but they can't head back to his nation yet because he still wants to try out that grimoire they gave him so he can master it. He uses the grimoire to cast the spell for the dust box and to fast track his mastery, He casts it over and over in rapid succession until he can do it perfectly with zero delay. Jody and Asuna are surprised that he could master the spell so easily, but that aside, they don't actually know what the spell does. Liam explains that the spell is called Dust Box, and it is pretty similar to an item box since you can put stuff in it, but there's one key difference. Liam takes a piece of fish and places it in the dust box for a minute, and after pulling it back out, the fish is completely rotten. Asuna and Jody are amazed, so they ask him if the spell is useful, but honestly, Liam can't think of any use for a spell that makes things age quickly. Just then, he spots a waitress with some wine and he comes up with a great idea. He runs off, and an hour later, he returns with a bottle of freshly squeezed grape juice. His theory is that if he adds some yeast to the grape juice and puts it in the dust box for a while, he will be able to make wine. They try it out and leave the grape juice in Liam's dust box for 5 minutes, and after pulling it out, the juice has become high-quality wine. Being able to produce wine in such a short amount of time is amazing, but it also applies to more. In fact, literally anything that requires fermentation can be mass-produced with this method, so the spell is incredibly useful. A while later, Liam takes Jody and Asuna to his house and pulls out 10 different bottles of wine. He put 10 bottles of grape juice in the dust box 1 hour apart, so the bottle labeled 10 was in there for 10 hours, the bottle labeled 9 was in there for 9 hours, and so on. He wants Jody to help him taste test the wine, and she's happy to help, so she grabs wine number 1 and takes a sip, then number 2 and number 3 and 4 all the way to 10. Liam was a bit of an alcoholic in his previous life, so he's honestly pretty jealous that Jody gets to enjoy the wine instead of him. Once she's done tasting all the wine, Jody exclaims that the 1 hour bottle tastes like 1-year-old wine, and the 10-hour bottle tastes like 10-year-old wine. This means that 1 hour in the dust box is equivalent to 1 year of fermentation, and now that Liam knows that he can streamline his production process. Asuna is jealous that Jody is the only one who gets to taste the wine, but Jody is technically 40, while Liam and Asuna are still too young. Now that Liam is done with his experiment, he takes Jody and Asuna to his nation and introduces them to everyone. Everyone immediately accepts them, and to celebrate their new arrivals, the villagers hold a feast in Asuna and Jody's honor. All the different species prepare their favorite dishes for the feast, so Chris prepares a plate of grilled lamb, Guy prepares some roast beef, and Raina prepares some mushroom soup. Asuna can hardly contain herself anymore, so she digs in and starts eating as much food as she can, and soon enough everyone else does the same. The next morning, Liam takes everyone out into the nearby forest to pick fruit so he can make different kinds of liquor. They find a bunch of star fruit in the trees, so Guy and Chris begin competing with each other to see who can harvest the most fruit, but Raina yells at the two of them to stop because if they pick all the fruit now, then next year's harvest won't grow. Just then, Liam hears a scream coming from the other side of the forest, so he runs over to investigate, and to his shock, he sees a man biting one of the trolls. He uses his power missiles to blast the man off the troll, but before he could interrogate him, the man runs off into the woods. Guy goes to check on the troll who got bitten, but for some reason, Gome is acting really strange. He became erratic and suddenly tried to bite Guy's face off, so Guy was forced to restrain him. Guy has no idea what could be wrong with Gome, but Liam thinks it might be some kind of status effects, and if that's really the case, then his all-clear spell should fix the problem. Liam casts the spell to clear all status effects on Gome, and thankfully makes him go back to normal and fall asleep. But Liam still has no idea what caused this in the first place. Jody has seen a similar condition before, so she tells Liam she thinks Gome might have been infected by a vampire. By biting people, vampires can turn others into vampires to act as their servants, and normally nothing can be done to help someone who has been bitten, but Liam was able to cure Gome almost instantly, which is miraculous. But vampires usually turn to dust in sunlight, so since that man was fine, then a Dracula must be involved. A Dracula is a mutant variant of vampire that is born once every few centuries, and under the power of a Dracula's leadership, other vampires become stronger as well, allowing them to survive in the sunlight. If it really is a Dracula, then they have a major problem on their hands, so Liam plans to investigate so he can take adequate countermeasures. Liam sends a scout out to look for any traces of the Dracula, but when the scout returns, he says he has bad news. He found the vampires 10 kilometers up north, but there are over 10,000 of them, and they are closing in fast. The village is vastly outnumbered, so the villagers are starting to get worried. There are so many vampires because the residents of this land have all been turned, including all the orcs, goblins, and other species. The fact that all the vampires are able to move around during the day means that there must be a particularly powerful Dracula behind this. Vampires are normally pretty chill and live quietly, but under the control of this Dracula, they have become violent and destructive, so Guy says they need to stop them before they do any more damage. However, Jody and Asuna think it is too risky to face the vampires head-on. It is true that they are all really powerful, but if any one of them gets bitten even once, they will be infected and join the vampire army. Liam agrees, but he still wants to do what he can to stop the vampires, so he tells everyone to evacuate all the nearby villages so they won't get overrun by the vampire horde. Unfortunately, none of the surrounding villages took their warning seriously because vampires usually aren't much of a threat. Then, a little while later, the vampires attacked an orc village, and even though the orcs put up a good fight, they were quickly overwhelmed, so all the orcs are now vampires as well. And one more thing. While the scout was watching all this unfold, a vampire appeared that was different from the rest of them. All the other vampires kneeled before it, and then it did something to resurrect all the vampires that had died during the battle with the orcs. There's no doubt in Liam's mind that the vampire the scout saw was actually the Dracula, but if the Dracula can revive its vampire servants indefinitely, then the only way to end this would be to take the Dracula out directly. However, it sounds like it would be impossible to even get close to the Dracula with the current size of its army. Fortunately, Liam has come up with a perfect plan for them to defeat the Dracula, so he asks the tribe leaders as well and Asuna and Jody for some help. The 5 of them end up confronting the vampires in a valley, but just before the vampires get to them, they all equip the armor Liam made for them, and they all begin tearing through the vampires. Vampire bodies begin piling up left and right, and once the group has done a significant amount of damage, Guy says they should retreat since this is more than enough to draw out the attention of Dracula. Sure enough, Dracula soon appears before them, but just as he is about to revive his fallen vampires, Liam swoops in and teleports him away. Dracula is both confused and impressed that Liam was able to move him against his will, so he asks Liam what he did. Liam explains that he teleported them 100 kilometers away, so Dracula won't be able to interact with any of his kin anymore. Liam is sure this whole mess will be solved once he defeats Dracula, but before their fight begins, he asks Dracula if he would be willing to stop turning people into vampires so everyone can coexist in peace. Dracula refuses Liam's peaceful resolution because there's no way he is going to stop until he has converted all the inferior species into his servants. In that case, Dracula leaves Liam with no choice, so he fires several power missiles at him, but even though the missiles hit him straight on, Dracula remains perfectly unharmed. He then disintegrates himself and appears behind Liam, but Liam manages to teleport away before Dracula could hit him. Liam then tries to hit Dracula with several holy lances, but despite being pierced several times, Dracula once again simply disintegrates and reforms himself like new. He then baits Liam into teleporting away and grabs him, but before Dracula could sink his teeth into Liam's neck, Liam swaps places with a clone and dispels it to avoid getting bitten. That was a really close call just now, so Liam is considering using his Guardian Raiden armor since it would give him a huge boost in power, but it would also drain all his mana, so it is too risky to use until he is sure he can defeat Dracula. He keeps trying to hit Dracula with all kinds of spells, but nothing seems to work, and Dracula tells Liam that all his resistance is pointless because no matter what he does, he won't be able to harm him. Dracula is immortal, meaning he exists outside the laws of this world, so he can't die. In fact, his body is merely a vessel that he uses to consume life force, so as long as this world exists, Dracula will remain indestructible. Liam thinks about what Dracula said earlier, and since he isn't alive as Dracula grabs him, Liam puts Dracula in his dust box. Living things usually can't be put inside the dust box, but since Dracula isn't alive, the rule doesn't apply to him. Now all Liam has to do is close the dust box and let time pass until Dracula eventually runs out of life force to keep himself going. Liam ends up standing there for 10 hours, meaning 10 years have passed for Dracula, and eventually he either ran out of life force or got so bored in there that he went into a state of suspended animation, so Liam has successfully defeated Dracula. Now that his job is done, he heads back to the canyon to see how the others are doing. As he teleports back, he is greeted by Asuna and Jody, who are glad to see that he is alright. They assume Liam must have managed to defeat Dracula somehow, and since Dracula is gone, he assumes all the victims should be free now. But unfortunately, they all start burning away instead. Once they became vampires, their bodies were being sustained by Dracula's magic, so now that Dracula is dormant, they are going to disappear. Liam doesn't want to let all these people die, so he starts thinking as hard as he can to figure out a way to save them, and that's when he remembers how he was able to cure Gon by using the All-Clear spell. He starts casting as many All-Clear spells as he can, and he is able to save a few of the people, but there are still tons more that are still disappearing. There's no way Liam can save them all with his single target All-Clear spell. That's when Liam comes up with an idea and puts on his Guardian Raiden armor for a power boost so he can cast a wide area All-Clear spell and heal everyone at once. The entire canyon is bathed in holy light, and by the time everything is settled down, all the vampires are back to normal, but shortly after, Liam passes out from mana exhaustion. Liam eventually wakes up an hour later, and everyone is relieved to see that he is alright. Liam asks how all the vampires are doing, but it looks like he doesn't have to worry since they are all in good condition now. Speaking of which, the others are curious about the spell Liam used to cure everyone because they've never seen anything like it, but before Liam explains that, he asks them to gather the vampires so he can talk to them. But not the ones that were turned into vampires, the ones who were originally vampires before the whole Dracula mess. All the true vampires are brought before Liam, and their leader immediately apologizes to Liam for all the trouble they caused. He offers to take full responsibility for the disaster and just asks that Liam spare the lives of his subordinates, but Liam tells him he doesn't have to worry because he doesn't intend to hold any of them accountable for it. The one responsible was Dracula anyway, so instead he offers them a choice to join his village and be able to walk during the daytime again. Now that Dracula has been defeated, the regular vampires must have lost the ability to survive in the sun. So by morning, they will either burn to ash or have to go back to their quiet life of darkness. The vampires are hesitant to agree to become Liam's servants after what happened with Dracula, but Liam assures them that he isn't a bad guy. He just has 2 rules he wants them to follow. 1, they have to listen to his instructions, and 2, they can't cause any conflicts. The vampires seem happy with the terms of that agreement, so they all gather so Liam can form contracts with them, and the first to form a contract is the vampire leader, so Liam names him Alucard. Several days later, Liam goes back to the place where he trapped Dracula, and since several centuries have passed within the box without a food source, Dracula starts fading from existence. Once Dracula has completely vanished, Liam dispels the box because he can finally relax. But elsewhere, a noble is currently watching footage of Liam's battle with Dracula on his crystal ball, and he can't believe that a single boy was actually strong enough to defeat Dracula. This is a problem for him because he was planning to use Dracula as an excuse to deploy troops into the Holy Land. But now he has bigger issues to deal with, like the kid who single-handedly took down a Dracula. He can tell just how powerful Liam is from the kind of magic he is using, but the video cuts off before the end of the fight, so he has no idea what method Liam used to defeat the Dracula. The noble can't believe a normal human could possess such strength, so he wants to watch Liam a little more to gather information before he tries to lay claim to that land. When monsters like Liam appear, it always leads to a turning point in the era, but the question now is whether Liam is going to become a hero or a demon lord. Back in Liam's village, he is exhausted after all the stress of dealing with Dracula, as well as having to form contracts with all 10,000 of Dracula's victims. He formed the contracts, but there's no way he can think of 10,000 names now, so he decides to just put a hold on naming for now. Just then, 2 slimes Liam named come up to him, and they say they have a gift for him. So one poops out a statue of Liam. Liam is grateful for the gift, so he thanks the slimes and takes them with him on his daily patrol. What was originally meant to be a small village has quickly grown into a city thanks to everyone working to build accommodations. Of all the species here aside from the dwarf, the elves have the most experience with construction, so Liam put Reyna in charge of that. Meanwhile, Guy and the other Jiva trolls are in charge of patrolling the promised land for threats, and Chris and the other wolves are in charge of hunting for food. Everyone has their responsibilities, and they all do their best to fulfill them, so things are going well. Just then, Liam is approached by Guy because he has something to tell him. He spotted a group of humans in the forest, and they claim to be merchants from Quistador, so they would like to have a meeting with the king of this land. Liam thinks it might be a good idea to meet with the merchants, but Liam says he isn't actually a king though. Guy has no idea what he's talking about because he is the master of over 10,000 powerful species and rules over the city, so of course he is the king. He even asks everyone else if they think Liam is the king, and they all pretty much assume he was, because who else would it be? And since everyone is in agreement that Liam should be their king, Raiden decides to make it official. As the original owner of this land, he proclaims that he is crowning Liam the king of this nation. A little while later, Liam teleports himself to Scarlet's house so he can check in on her. He finds her sitting in her room, awaiting his arrival, and after greeting him, Liam asks Scarlet if she managed to find any information about what the Kingdom of Jamil is planning. Unfortunately, she tells Liam she couldn't learn anything, but she does know that the officials of Jamil are hiding something. That's probably why they refuse to pull out of the Promised Land even with the threat of incurring Liam's wrath. There must be something there that they are looking for, but Liam has no idea what it could be, so he asks Raiden if he knows anything. Raiden refuses to answer Liam's question, so he decides to investigate more later and asks Scarlet if she would like to return to his city with him. But she says she wants to remain in the capital and continue gathering information for Liam. Liam accepts her decision and says he will be heading back to the village now, but he's going to come visit Scarlet again soon. Once Liam gets back to the Promised Lands, he tells Raiden to spill the details because he knows Raiden knows something. Raiden is impressed that Liam could tell he was hiding something, so he decides to fill him in. He asks Liam if he remembers where he found the Guardian Raiden and tells him to think about why Raiden bothered putting a Guardian there in the first place. Liam connects the dots, so he teleports to the secret room, but he still can't tell what's so special about this place. Raiden tells him to try filling the room with his magic power, so Liam does so, and eventually, a secret room within the secret room appears. Liam heads down into the room and he immediately feels a familiar sensation. It's the same as the one he gets from his magic ring, so he asks Raiden about it, and Raiden explains that dragons like him collect a lot of interesting things over their lifetimes, so this room is sort of like Raiden's magic library, full of ancient and forbidden magic. Raiden had Liam's interest as soon as he mentioned ancient magic, so Liam asks him how it works. Raiden tells him the room itself contains magic, and depending on Liam's magic power, more and more spells will become available to him. He encourages Liam to try learning one ancient spell, so Liam begins absorbing the knowledge from the wall, but when he tries to activate the spell, several bubbles suddenly appear in front of him. Raiden tells him that this is somewhat of a defense mechanism for the secret room, so until Liam manages to beat the puzzle, these bubbles will keep appearing each time he tries to cast his spell. The only way to complete the test is to continuously pop the bubbles until a limit is reached, so he encourages Liam to try his best, even if it takes weeks of bubble popping. However, Liam has a quicker method in mind. He creates a clone of himself, and both he and his clone begin shooting as many fire spells as they can to destroy the bubbles, and after only an hour of doing this, Liam manages to clear the game and gain access to the ancient spell. Now that he has mastered the spell, he decides to go test out with his clone, so he has the clone cast an item box and drop a rock over him. However, before the rock could hit Liam, he uses the ancient spell he just learned to cast an Absolute Force Shield, and as the rock collides with the shield, they both crumble. The Absolute Force Shield is a spell that can completely block all damage from a single physical attack. It is an amazing spell, but it has its limitations because it can't block any magical attacks at all. And if two physical attacks are fired at once, the shield can't block the second attack. But even if the Absolute Shield only blocks one attack, Liam can just cast it multiple times at once, making him practically invincible against physical attacks. There's also a spell called Absolute Magic Shield, but it's on the second floor of Raiden's den. So Liam is going to have to work hard to raise his magic power and break the second seal. Liam thinks about it for a second, and since he already knows how to use Absolute Force Shield, he is pretty sure he can just make the Absolute Magic Shield himself without having to use Raiden's library. He begins casting the Absolute Force Shield, but this time he makes the target for damage negation magic. He then proceeds to test the magic in his imagination until he managed to perfectly recreate the Absolute Magic Shield. Raiden is so stunned that he doesn't know what to say because Liam somehow managed to create ancient magic on his own after using it for 2 minutes. In the centuries since Raiden made his library, no one has ever managed to break the first seal to access it, but not only has Liam done that, but he also made ancient magic with nothing but intuition. Liam then goes on to test the new magic shield with his clone, so he has his clone shoot several power missiles at him, all of which he then proceeds to block with his magic shield. It seems to work perfectly since Liam suffered no damage, so he is satisfied with his outcome. Now, there's just one thing left to do, so Liam heads into his pocket dimension and uses his Shade Spirit to make it pitch black. Raiden is confused and asks him what he is doing, so Liam explains that he wants to get used to sensing the presence of magic. This way, Liam will always know whether an attack is going to be physical or magical, meaning he can always have the right shield prepared. Raiden asks him why he is bothering with this, since he could technically just cast both Force Shield and Magic Shield at the same time, but that would be inefficient, and he loves magic too much to settle for a mediocre solution. This was the end of episode 8. Subscribe to not miss the next part.